Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, greetings listeners from your summertime fun time podcast host, Brendan Riley. I'm happy to be speaking to you today as I stroll around my neighborhood on a relatively cool late July day. It is July 31st, in fact, and I'm recording my beginning of the month top of the shelf episode 1 day early because for the next 4 days I will be thoroughly ensconced at Gen Con. I'm very excited about that, and I won't probably have time to record a podcast and definitely wouldn't have time to edit and upload it, even though this podcast is shoddily edited. I will say skillfully uploaded though. I click that upload button like a champ. So because of that, and because when I get back I'm certain I'll want to talk about Gen Con and whatever else is on my mind, I thought I would use today to do our end of the month wrap up, let you know where I am with my various projects, talk about the games I enjoyed this month, and ask for feedback from you. How did your month go? It's interesting, my overall impression of the month was that it wasn't a great gaming month, or wasn't quite as good as June. Now, June was outrageously good as a gaming month, but my impression in my head was that July wasn't. I think the numbers belie that. Turns out it was pretty good, pretty great. The big difference though, I think, or the big thing to keep in mind is that so much of the gaming I did this month was not new games. And so since a lot of my tracking stats are around keeping track of new games I've played or games I've taken off lists or that sort of thing, the numbers part of my game has not changed much, even though I played a lot of games this month, which is an interesting thing. I may need to shift my mindset a little bit so I'm not so focused on new games that I forget to enjoy the games I have, or the games I actually played, which I did enjoy very much. So let's jump right in. Start with the final monthly stats, as I like to do. I got 94 plays of 51 different games in this month for a total of 547 plays this year so far, with 196 different games played. Wowzers. At this rate, I am tracking to play over 1,000 games. It's going to be tight. Probably not quite 1,000 games because this is the end of month 7 out of 12. So, yeah, we'll see. A lot. That's pretty exciting. Not much in the way of playtests this month. Getting ready for Gen Con, we didn't end up playing very many games, so that part is interesting. My shelf of opportunity, I'm afraid, went up a little bit. I acquired a couple games and didn't get many new ones played from my shelf this month, so I'm actually up to 54 again. I don't know, perhaps 50 is about the equilibrium that my collection holds, unless I do something drastic like our listener Chris Hickman, who has vowed to not acquire any new games for a while. I don't know if I can bear that. So on my top of the stack, I had 4 games on there. We had La Isla, we had Res Publica, we had Dread Curse, and we had our repeat of the month, Julchen und der Monster, Juliet and the Monster. It's always the 3 main games, and then there's sort of one bonus game, and I get credit for it if I do it, but I don't lose credit if I don't. Extra credit, if you will. So I got 2 of the games played, La Isla and Dread Curse. La Isla is an interesting little Stefan Feld game where you are explorers on an island, and you place these explorers out, and when you have a certain number of them surrounding a token, you get a token, and then you get to move a thing up, and at the end of the game you kind of multiply the number of tokens by how valuable each kind of token is. It's a nice little set collection game with a cool mechanism where you get these cards, and each card can be used in one of 3 phases, basically A, B, or D, and you get to decide which phase to use the card in. And the phase that you use the card in determines what it does, so it's got different things on each card. It is output randomness in the same way that a lot of Feld games are. You get some randomness at the beginning, and you have to then determine how to use it. Pardon my vocal weirdness, I have the hiccups. So that's La Isla. Really, a really nice filler, not too hard to explain, fun to play. Production quality is not amazing, but I got it for $8, I think. It's on sale. There's a place called Tuesday Morning, I think, near us, where they had copies that didn't sell or something. Yeah, anyway, quite enjoyable. The other one, Dread Curse, is a pirate-themed game where you are playing cards and taking coins from one another. You get rolls each round. You grab a roll, kind of like Citadels or something, and then as the rolls play out, that determines what you get to do. It's fine. It wasn't great. My son liked it enough that he took it to his room, and it's in his room now, so I'm going to declare it playable. He enjoyed it. We'll probably play it again. Again, not a bad buy. I got it on a clearance sale from Miniature Market a long time ago. The two games we did not get played, Res Publica 2230 AD, which is a Reiner Knizia game that revises an old Reiner Knizia game called Res Publica. I just didn't get it to the table. It was a 3-player game. Never got it there. And then Jolchen und der Monster. Again, I just didn't get it to the table. And frankly, I've misplaced it. I was looking for it yesterday and I couldn't find it. So hopefully I haven't lost it, because it's a cute little game, but very little. The box is about 3 inches by 3 inches by a half an inch deep. So it's very small. And I put it in some bag and have forgotten which bag. So I had 8 new games that I've played this month, which makes 78 so far this year. I'm on track to play 100 new games this year, which is a nice target. Actually, I guess 120. I've played I'm averaging more than 10 a month, and there's 12 months. So I guess but if I break 100, I think that's a pretty great set of experiences. I got to try 100 new games this year. That's fun. So the new games that I got to play, La Isla and Dread Curse, I already mentioned. In a previous episode, I think I talked about Imperial Settlers Roll and Write and Museum Heist a bit, and Tigris and Euphrates a bit. Ink and Gold I talked about. So I guess, and Lorenzo Il Magnifico I mentioned last episode. So the only one I haven't really talked about on the podcast is Libertalia, which is a role selection game where you're choosing... Oh, actually, I did talk about that as well. I'm pretty sure. Well, go ahead and post in the comments on the forum if you want to hear about one of those games, because I'm pretty sure that I talked about them all. But those are the 8 that I played this month, which puts me up to, like I said, 78 new games this year. I've only tried a couple expansions this month. Okay, so I tried 2 unlocks this month. One of those is Scheherazad's Last Tale, and the other one is Sherlock Holmes. Both were pretty good. I had a good time playing them, and was glad to have done them. I also inadvertently tried an expansion to Hellboy. As you know, I got the Hellboy box that came with all sorts of goodies in it. And one of the things, if you got the Kickstarter box, all the Hellboy stuff in the first wave came in one box. Although technically, some of the things in that box are expansions. And so the stuff that I have in my first box is not. Some of it's an expansion, one of them being the Conqueror Worm expansion, which is the 2 or 3 scenarios. Thing is, I hadn't organized the scenarios very well, so I didn't know which was which, and frankly, we accidentally played it. Technically, it's an expansion. It's not part of the base game if I bought the regular base game, but it was part of the box that it came in, so I don't think of it as an expansion. The way that other boxes that show up later will be, to me, an expansion. That was the Hellboy expansion, which doesn't really count. So I'm up to 15 new-to-me expansions this year. I don't have a lot of ambition about getting these done, necessarily. I'd say the big place where I really succeeded a lot in my tracking this month is Out of the Dust plays. Out of the Dust plays are, of course, games that you haven't played in a year or more. Hence, they're dusty. And because I mentioned in the episode after that family trip that I took a bunch of games I hadn't played in a long time with me, and we played those sort of over again, giving me a whole bunch of Out of the Dust plays. Those were Love Letters, Sushi Go, Bonanza, Quiddler. Those 4 are all games I hadn't played in a really long time. Then I played Forbidden Island, and we didn't play test this at all. A couple games that with my son that I hadn't played in a long time, and both were fun, although we didn't play test this at all. Is really kind of a mess. It's not meant to be a carefully crafted game. It's basically like Flux that way, but still supposed to be fun. And then I did get to play another game of Rex, which was quite a delight. That is a really fun area control game with just a soupçon of complicated and random experiences that make for interesting conflict. I really enjoyed that one. I'm a little sad because I suspect once the reboot of Dune comes out, people aren't going to want to play Rex anymore. And I really like Dune, or I really like Rex, and I don't know if I like it enough to go buy another game. And I suspect other people in the group will pick up Dune, which would mean that my copy of Rex just won't get played anymore, which is a bummer. On the other hand, just because they bring Dune out doesn't mean I can't play Rex. So I guess the option to play Rex would be mine, since I have a copy. So that covers the Out of the Dust plays. Nothing too incredible or exciting there. So on to my 10 by 10 challenges. As a reminder for new listeners, the 10 by 10 challenge is where you choose 10 games that you're going to play 10 times over the course of the year, and you track that. There are 2 varieties of these challenges. I'm sure there's more than 2. I'm using 2 different varieties of a 10 by 10 challenge. A hardcore 10 by 10 challenge is one where you pick the 10 games you're going to play at the beginning of the year, and those are the 10 games you've committed to play. Normal hard 10 by 10 challenge just says try to play 10 games 10 times each in a year, and you get to pick which games they are, and you can change that list at any time. I play a slightly softer variant of the hardcore challenge, which is hardcore challenge with one alternate. Basically, you get one gimme game where if it turns out it isn't a game you want to play 10 times, you can set it aside and put a different game in instead, but you have to designate that potential other game as well. And that's what I've done. So on my hardcore challenge, again, the 10 games are Betrayal Legacy, London 2nd Edition, Cerebria, Legacy of Dragonholt, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Sagrada, Gizmos, Kings of Steam, Rainbow Knights, and Welcome To. The alternate game was Welcome To, and I've swapped that in place of Rampage or Terror in Meeple City, which is an amusing game, but my son picked that one, and he doesn't really want to play it 10 times. So we're doing well. The biggest challenge, of course, Kings of Steam. My daughter and I really need to start playing that. We're up to the point where we're going to have to play it twice a month. Actually, I should just think of it as we have to play it twice a month. And then if we get that done, we'll be done by the end of November. I may bring that to Toggle once to see if I can get other people to play, because actually larger player count makes that game much more interesting. It's a fun game, not too hard. Goes fairly quickly, actually, so shouldn't be hard to knock off. We're very close. I'm very close on London. Only one more play of that needed. Betrayal Legacy and Cerebria both at 2 plays, which seems quite doable. I think the challenge now is being at 78%. Feels like I'm almost there, so I'm not mentally in the place where I'm like, oh, I gotta complete this challenge. But I still have 22 plays to go, which is not insignificant. And I really ought to make sure that I'm focusing on that. My normal challenge is actually at 84%, so we're closer. This one has been interesting because a lot of the games that come in, if you were to go and put the plays on a calendar, most of the plays of each game are all together. So like, for instance, Cryptid is on here. I've played it 8 times. All 8 of those plays came within like 2 weeks. We got the game. My son liked it. We played it a lot. And we haven't finished it. But so I have a number of those where I got to get them out a couple more times. The 4 games that I have played more than 10 times are Quicks, Wingspan, Onirim, and Codenames Duet, or Codenames Harry Potter. It's the same game, so I count that as the same. I mean, it's the same game, different cards. So I count it as the same game in terms of keeping track of this. And then I have another 15 games that I'm tracking. Basically, once I've played a game 3 times in the year, I put it on the spot where I'm looking at the 10 for 10 list, just because a game that I've played 3 times is a game that could potentially hit that burst of plays where it shoots up into the 10 for 10 range. If I haven't played it 10 times yet, it's not engaging enough to do that, or I'm not engaged enough with it to do that. Then there's a leftovers category on my 10 for 10. Leftovers are games from previous 10 for 10s that I never finished. I've added to that list a little bit because I played Bonanza. I went back and looked, and in fact Bonanza was one of the unfinished games in my 2017 10 for 10. So I figured, hey, let's pop that in there too and see what we can do. So we finished that. I also have from the 2017 10 for 10 Fugitive, the Chris Fowers game, and then we have Via Nebula, Matainai, Ex Libris, and Stuffed Fables as games from previous years that are from 2018 that I need to play as well. I've only done 23% of those, but there are only 15 total or 20 total on that list, so it's faster, easier to get those played. Nonetheless, I'm not moving very quickly on that. Then finally, my shelf of opportunity. Like many of you, I'm doing my best to have my shelf of opportunity come down, but in fact this month I backslid a bit. I did play 3 games, La Isla, Dread Curse, and Imperial Settlers Roll and Write, or 3 off my shelf that I played, but I'm afraid I added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's a total net of 4 extras on the shelf. Now, it sounds like I'm being a little outrageous given that last month I was talking about how much I'm not going to be buying games. I do want to point out 2 of the games, Glory to Rome and Dawn of the Peacemakers, are games that should have been on this list and were not. I discovered that they weren't on the list, but I have never played them. So I added them to the list. Because what's the point of keeping a list like this if you're going to lie to yourself? So I'm up to 54 unplayed again, which is a bummer, but so be it. And then finally, in the Great Designer Challenge, I did not move that needle forward on the Vladimir Suchy games. I did play, I did get to play 20th Century in June, but I did not play Last Will in July. Looking forward to doing that soon. In the meantime, do pop by Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know how you did on your month of gaming. And otherwise, I hope that your August is splendid and that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.